Earthlings, you weren't expecting this. So something has come across our desks, you might say, today. And so we contacted the nurses and they switched on our life support systems again. So we're back and we're still alive, aren't we, Ronnie?
Just about, yes.
well, that's pretty good. Somebody's saying hello. Hey, Michael. Hello. Yeah,
That's
this is just...
yeah, it's good that people are here at short notice. Brilliant. Hi,
So,
Michael.
Without further ado, but I will say hello to people as they come in. We wanted to talk about this. Such a weird situation to come, but there's some kind of almost like comical size to it, really, isn't there? Because so anyway, my friend, I'm friends with an animal communicator, and she has said over and over that animals understand their purpose and accept them. This includes animals who have the sole purpose of feeding humans. Animals know and accept their roles, so why shouldn't we eat them? So let's just stop there, because that is so weird. I mean, like, one thing I would say is that, I mean, like, I always thought as a long-term vegan that farmers were fairly efficient business people, if ruthless as well, you know, the animal farmers. But this is turning out to make them seem completely foolish. I mean, you know, they don't need to lock them in. They don't need the electric cattle prods. They don't need the fencing. I mean, fencing costs thousands of pounds for farmers. You know, they don't need any of that.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, they probably wouldn't even, if they had a nearby slaughterhouse, they wouldn't even need the lorries, would they? Because the animals would just walk there and give themselves up.
Walk there, yeah.
I mean, you know, the whole thing. I'm friends with an animal communicator. An animal communicator, kind of, what's that? That to me, that seems a little bit kind of verging on hocus pocus, to be honest. An animal communicator.
Well, it could be animal shaman. You know, like
but you
like
see,
Thomas,
is that
like
somehow they claim that they can understand what animals are kind of communicating, that they can understand that better than the rest of us. It's a bit weird. I mean, I know that you can kind of. I mean, this is kind of. I know this is used quite a lot in the so-called kind of training of dogs, where people understand how, you know, how dogs operate, like that they're a pack animal and all that, and by understanding that, it's easier to get dogs to do what you want them to do or not to do what you don't want them to do through that understanding of how they operate. I can see that, but that's not really the same thing, is it? This is like a bit of psychobabble, isn't it? An animal communicator. And, you know, that I'm suspicious of that straight away, that we're going into weirdness a little bit there.
Well, and the thing is, though, Ronnie, you know, if you took this to its logical conclusion, you wouldn't even have to farm them. I mean, you could have them as free living beings, and rather like the cow in Hitchhiker's Guide, you know, as soon as they kind of feel oh, I'm ready to go, they'll kind of trot into the farm on the way.
Well, we just get this animal communicator in to whisper in their ear, right now it's time for you to go to the slaughterhouse. I need you to all line up, and you know, and they'd go, brilliant, yay! The day's here that we're meant for. Isn't this wonderful? And they'd all go happily off to be killed.
Okay. I wonder what this communicator would say to all the footage of the other animals who were trying to escape, either from the farm, on the way to the slaughterhouse, from the slaughterhouse, the mothers who will defend their offspring from farmers. I mean, obviously, there's not millions of those kind of videos, but there's quite a lot of them. But the reason there's not millions is because they've got them under control.
Yes.
I mean, they're under control that they don't even need, according to this.
Well, yeah, yes. I mean, you know, you really get kind of quite a lot of stories about animals escaping from slaughterhouse, because it's always like, you know, oh, this bull escaped and he ran amok, and sadly they always end up being cornered and shot. Although, of course, they're going to be killed anyway.
Well, not always. When I was in Liverpool, a cow escaped from, I think it was Fazakerley Slaughterhouse, I think it was. And as usual, those who escape from a house of slaughter tend to end up being like almost like mini celebrities for a few days. So I think it was like the Daily Star bought the cow and made a big splash in the paper for 2 or 3 days. And then the Freshfield Animal Rescue Centre found out that they were going to sell the cow back. The paper was going to sell the cow back to the farmer to take back to slaughter. And so Freshfield said, look, this is going to be real bad publicity for you if you did that. Why don't you hand the cow over? And so they did. And she ended up living in the little block of kind of cottages that we had in a place called Dungeon Lane. So we had 3, and so there was 2 inhabitable ones, and there was one a bit broken down, which we made into like a stables. But the other interesting thing about it is that she was pregnant, so we ended up with 2.
Yeah, they're quite often pregnant because, of course, you know, cows are kept kind of pregnant pretty much all the time, aren't they? Or a lot of the time. You know, and I think quite often when they're sent for slaughter, it isn't just one animal that's killed; it's 2, because they've got a calf.
Yeah, well, you know, there was a big fuss made in the vegan community about 5 months ago when a video was released exposing the RSPCA because they had guidelines on what slaughterhouses should do if they're killing a cow and find a calf inside. Right, you know, who was alive, and so they're kind of recommended to kill them with blunt force trauma and all that. But I mean, that's what the RSPCA is set up for. You know, that's their job, kind of to regulate animal use. But it caused outrage in some parts of the vegan community because they thought, I don't know why this is, but they assumed that because it said prevention of cruelty to animals, that meant the RSPCA was a vegan group. Yeah, but of course, we would never think of the RSPCA as a vegan group ever, would we? So
no, we never ever did. I mean, some of us got involved with the RSPCA way back in the 70s to try to get them to become anti-hunting, because prior to them they weren't against hunting, and we successfully managed to change that. But we were under no illusions about that they were nevertheless still a kind of welfareist group, and they weren't a vegan group. We never considered them to be a vegan group.
Well, consider this. I mean, it's an excuse used by quite a number stopping to chat at Earthling's experience. I mean, I've never had anybody claim this. I mean, we obviously know that in a deeply speciesist society, non-vegans are going to say anything in order to defend their violence. But I've never known this. It's such a weird thing to say.
I mean, I think people, you know, people desperate because people are resistant to change. You know, and you know what people eat is kind of really kind of quite deep seated in them, isn't it? And so they're resistant to changing that, and so they'll scrat around for any excuse, you know, to carry on eating how they've always eaten. You see, and
it's kind of almost like any excuse will do. So there's no doubt about it that this kind of, you know, let's be frank, rubbish will do for a lot of people.
Well, it'll do until it's challenged. It'll do until it's challenged. It's almost as if they come out with anything that comes into their head, no matter how ridiculous it is. You know, I mean, this is one of the more ridiculous excuses, isn't it? And they will come out with these lame excuses, and it's just a question of like, and this is one that's very easily combated. I think all of them are really easily, you know, are easily answered. But this one, you know, why do the you know animals, you know, escape from slaughterhouses? Why they can?
Why do they need? You know, we used to have, well, still do. It's called Tools of Injustice, so it's a display, and one of them is the electric prod that they use to move other animals around, particularly when they're loading them onto the slaughter truck and loading them off, and then moving around the slaughterhouse and everything. And this farmer said to us, well, we have to use that because it's humane. Otherwise, we'd have to use like a 4x4 kind of stave and hit them with that. And I was saying, well, hang on a minute. this communicator, didn't they think while they were conceiving this rather bizarre idea, well, what about the ones who escape? Why do farmers need an electric prod to move them around?
And did this, amazing communicator communicate with a cow who'd have a calf taken away and who was crying all night after the calf was taken away? That's all right. The cow understands, oh, yeah, it's fine that they've taken my calf because I understand, it's my
Well, they wouldn't need to take the calf in the first place, would they?
Well, no, the cow would, that would be kind of, willingly given up, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the cow would say to the calf, no, dear, you have this nice kind of powdered stuff that the farmer's going to bring because I'm reserving this for the lovely humans. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it is ridiculous. And I mean, going on to the next part of it, humans are omnivores. Just look at our teeth and anatomy to know this is true.
Which is not related to the other part of it anyway. Yeah,
there's a couple of things here that like if it is the case that we're omnivores, well, that means we're definitely not carnivores, and carnivores kind of have to eat animal flesh in order to survive, and unless that can be kind of very carefully and expertly simulated. But certainly they, in normal circumstances, they'd have to consume animal flesh. Now, that isn't the situation. We don't have to eat animals. It may be that we're able to digest.
Able to and must are different things.
Able to, but it doesn't mean I'd probably be able to kill one of our cats and eat the cat and, derive nutrition from that. But that doesn't mean that I should do that or I must do that, does it? It means.
No, I think you'd end up with a face full of scratches too, Ronnie. But
yeah.
But why? Well, I mean, I suppose because they're designated as animal companions that they.
Well, I mean, in certain areas of the world, people do eat dogs and cats and all sorts.
Yeah, well, I was going
to
bring that. This kind of multinational kind of cultural difference. I mean, so does that mean that the dogs and the cats in places where they are regarded as so-called food animals are they in this situation, but not the dogs and cats in, let's say, the West?
Well, it would mean the dogs and cats, in the cages in the street markets were really quite happy to be in those cages because they knew the role was to feed the human.
Yeah.
And then also, horses. You see horses. You remember the horse meat, so-called horse meat scandal, where they found horse meat here in the UK. Horse meat was found in kind of beef products. And there was a big furore over that. Oh no, we've eaten horse meat, or there might be horse meat in this. Whereas, you go across the channel to France, and people over there eat horse meat. And it's mad, isn't it? I mean, there was meat. There was meat in my meat.
You wouldn't need those. You wouldn't need those painful bits either. But also, I mean, obviously, it says this includes animals that have the sole purpose for feeding, right? Us, but so that would also mean that laboratory animals are okay with this too. They happily,
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's almost like I'd like to talk to this animal communicator. To be quite honest, I'd like to communicate with a communicator and kind of.
I think you might have difficulty communicating with this one, but
ask a few questions of the communicator. But the other one, just look at our teeth and anatomy to know this is true. Because occasionally, you'll be doing a street stall or a stall somewhere, and someone will come up, and what they'll do, they'll just point to their teeth.
Yeah, they will.
I've had that. It's usually a bloke. Well, pretty much always a bloke. Point. Look at this, and pointing at the teeth. Well, the thing is, look at a gorilla's teeth. Look how big a gorilla's teeth are. The canine, is it canine teeth, the long ones, how big they are. Well,
Yeah, well, obviously
they're
hippos are the even bigger, aren't they?
they're
You know, so
vegetarian, aren't they? And they
yeah.
use those
Mm.
teeth for kind of, in vegetable matter. So that's nonsense when the pointing at the teeth
A
thing.
lot of those huge canines are there for display and ritual as well.
Yeah, they're there for stuff like
Yeah.
that rather than,
Mm.
so, it's just a desperate excuse, really, like the kind of whole of this is,
Yeah, going back to the omnivores thing,
Yeah.
I always think that when people say we're omnivores, I think that generally speaking reveals that they don't really know what an omnivore is, because I think they're assuming that it gives them almost like an impetus and an obligation that they have to eat 50-50, and it doesn't mean that.
No, it means that we're able to digest
Yeah, able to and must is
a wide
completely different.
range of different materials, but it doesn't mean you have to eat those things.
See, in this one, Ronnie, I was arrested in the States for carrying an electric prod at a rodeo protest to show the media on the premise that I was threatening people with the media on the premise that I was threatening people with a stun gun. These are perfectly legal at rodeos and on dairy farms. Yeah, well, again, that's interesting. That like take it out of its purported use, then you've got a weapon. But I mean, given what was said in this, you don't need any of these weapons.
No, you wouldn't need that, because you wouldn't need a prod or anything, because you just whisper her in there and get the communicator over. Say, look, now's the time. Now you've got to go to fulfill your desired purpose.
It's a wonder every farm hasn't got a communicator as well as a vet.
Yeah, well, this is it. Like, these people could make a fortune, couldn't they? Going from farm to farm, telling the animals that it was their time and to peacefully.
Yeah, but just think though logically about the amount of money that the farmers are wasting. I mean, they don't need fences.
No, not if these animals
need cages. They don't need to lock them in.
No, I know. I mean, it's a nonsense, isn't it? It really is a nonsense. And there was the other case, wasn't there? Was a case over here of a pig that escaped, I think, from slaughter, and she had piglets. She went out in somewhere remote or something.
Oh, living in a kind of wooded area.
And she was rescued, and she's ended up with sanctuary. There's actually a film being made about her. I'm not sure whether it's called Pig the film, but there's a film that's on that you can watch. I think it's been shown.
That's good imagination, isn't it? Pig the film.
Cinemas. I think it's called that. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and it's the story of like her story of how she managed to survive and her piglets managed to survive.
Yeah, well,
another example.
Yeah, when I did the podcast with Harold Brown, who used to be a farmer and now a vegan activist, I actually said to him, "Can you imagine as we move towards a vegan world, which of the other animals that we now oppress and domesticate would be viable as free living beings?" And he thought that quite a few might be. I mean, cows might be, although they're very big udders would be a problem.
Yeah, they've been. The trouble is they've been selectively bred.
Yeah.
To and it's the same with
pigs would be a problem because they're so huge now.
Yeah, pretty much all farmed animals have been selectively bred, and that includes cows, that they've got these huge udders and everything. This is why they suffer so frequently from mastitis, because of that.
It'd be interesting though, wouldn't it? If you've got generations of ex farmed animals, whether they would actually kind of re-evolve back to something like whence they came, as it were, or whether
I think kind of eventually they would. But it's the same with, like, if you look at chickens, chickens that are reared and kept for food, broiler chickens, that they've been selectively bred to put on weight really, really quickly, so quickly that their legs can't support their bodies, and they're killed at 6 weeks old. And even if they're rescued, they don't live very long afterwards, usually, because they're
I had a few liberated broilers once, and I think at least half of them died pretty quick.
Yeah, yeah.
But then they did that they started crowing and stuff. So some of the kind of resilient ones, I mean, they're so tenacious as well, because they're battling against all the odds. You know, they've got these little kind of feet. Sometimes the feet are all deformed because of their situation, and they're still fighting away, trying to live their lives. You know.
Yeah, I was saying with battery hens, you know, when they've been rescued, and you know, I've been involved in rescuing them, you know, obviously some years ago, and you know, I go back a few weeks later and visit them, you know, where they're being cared for. And it's amazing the change in them, how they've been in cages all their life, but they're there, you know, scraping at the ground, and you know, they you know, their sort of natural instincts soon kind of come back, you know.
Well, getting them out of the cages initially is difficult, though, because they're institutionalized, aren't they? So that's another problem. What do you think about this question, Ronnie? What language do the non-humans use? I wonder.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I know this animal communicator must be adept in all sorts of animal languages, mustn't they?
Yeah,
I mean, it's verging on the. It is very much like merging on the mumbo jumbo. This, you know, as if someone could say, "Well, I know an animal communicator." You know, it's almost like saying, "I know someone who was abducted by aliens."
There was a film about this person. It was called Doctor Do something.
Yeah, Doctor Do a lot, was it?
Do a lot, yeah.
But yeah, this is one of the many excuses. I mean, another one is like, you know, talking about stalls. Another one is like the B12. I mean, we had a bloke. We were doing a stall. It was it was in the foyer of Tesco's. We were promoting their plant-based products. You know, this is going back. It was before the pandemic, and a guy just came up to the stall and he shouted B12, and walked off. You see,
yeah.
And I thought, what is this bloke? Has he got like vitamin Tourette's? You know, is he going to go down the high street shouting niacin and, you know,
vitamin Tourette,
riboflavin, shouting that out?
I've said this before, but I remember two things that were shouted at us in the street in Dublin. One of them is, I don't eat trees, somebody said as they went past. And then somebody else said, we've got teeth, and walked off. And so you're just thinking, right, okay. I mean, you just can't argue with sophisticated arguments like that, Ronnie.
You can't. No, I know, and it's mad. But you see, the B12 thing, like, there's a couple of things regarding that. Is that you know, a lot of farmed animals now have to be actually injected themselves with B12 because of a deficiency in the soil. I think there needs to be cobalt in the soil or something for them to be able to produce B12. And because we fucked the soil up so much, that's deficient. And so those animals themselves have to be given B12 injections. And the other thing is the production of B12. It's kind of very similar, really, to the growing of vegetables. You know, it's kind of, it's sort of fermented. You know, there is a, you know, so it's like, isn't like an unnatural process to be able to produce B12 for ourselves. You know, it's
it's going back to the fact that, you know, we're living in a very deeply specious world, and so people, you see, it's almost like non-points that they raise. It's good enough, you see, for them, because they're just looking for anything. You know, give me anything to say, kind of thing. And
well, that's right. But then of course, our task is to challenge that, so they no longer can rely on that anymore, isn't it?
Yeah, that's our job.
Yeah, that's our job. And
we need to bust cultural speciesism, folks. That's our job.
That's right. Yes.
Right. So, unless you've got something else, Ronnie, do you want to? Any announcements? What you're up to? What you're doing? Any birthday greetings? What do you want to do?
Anything? Birthday greetings. Well, it's not my birthday just yet. It will be fairly soon.
So officially, are you vegan 51 years now, Ronnie?
Pretty much, I would say. It was I don't remember exactly when I went vegan. In this would be in 1972. I know it was round about. It was around about this time. Might have been just a little bit later, but it's pretty much. I'm pretty much up to 51 years vegan now,
right?
And still alive, of course.
Well, indeed. and on that note, we will be back with our usual show next Tuesday at our 7 p.m.
Yeah, and tune in.
We're doing some more campaigning ideas.
Yeah,
and I put a few up on my YouTube. They've got this little shorts thing now where you can put something up so long as it's not more than a minute long. So I've done 4 different ones. Funny enough, I was just looking for something, and I found this box, and I thought, I'll just film me unpacking it. That was all kind of rubbish in it, but there you go. But so we'll be talking about more campaigning ideas. We've already gone through 10, and there's 50 altogether. So we'll see how many we get through this Tuesday.
Well, I think it's going to probably be about 10 a show. We got through 10 the first time. It was quite.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this show was going to be 10 minutes, and look what you've done to me.
It always is. We always go on for ages.
Yes.
Not as long as our usual shows, though.
No. Thank goodness for that. So, people, thank you very, 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 very much, because we didn't announce it in advance. We just came on, and it's brilliant. We've got 11 people watching, so thank you.
That's very good.
Yeah, excellent. Absolutely excellent. So thank you very much. And we will be back, providing, Ronnie, that we are
still alive.